Since 2 weeks after his owner, Martin Duram, was killed in his home, Bud has repeated it over and over.
Hello, my fellow animal lovers and history buffs. Now imagine investigating a fatal crime with one apparent witness covered in grey feathers, unable to take an oath, and known for swearing. This is the story of Bud, the African grey parrot. In the late 1990s, Martin Duram from Michigan acquired a young African grey parrot and called him Bud. After Martin and his first wife Christina then divorced, Bud remained with Martin. For almost 20 years, he heard Martin's voice, laughter, and learnt his familiar speech patterns. Then one day in May 2015, Martin was found unalived in his home near Sand Lake, having sustained 5 firearm injuries. His second wife Glenna was found underneath covers with 2 wounds near her right ear, but she survived. The police found 3 apologetic letters in Glenna's handwriting, and the couple had had serious financial problems at the time, and someone using Glenna's phone had viewed web pages about Ruger firearms, including the very model linked to Martin's death. Amongst the evidence found was also a message sent from Glenna's phone to a contact labelled Mom, and it read, "Love you, sorry." Bud the parrot went on to live with Christina, who knew both Martin and the parrot well, having lived with Bud while she'd been married to Martin. Christina became convinced that Bud was recreating the argument from that fateful night. Bud appeared to switch between 2 voices before producing what Christina believed was Martin's panicked plea.
So what are the possible explanations for this?
Was Bud recalling something he had witnessed, or was he copying a memorable sequence, or were people hearing meaning that was never really there? Irene Peppenberg's research shows why the line between mimicry and meaningful communication is much more complicated than it first appears. African grey parrots can produce speech without any obvious understanding, yet some intensely trained parrots have learnt to use spoken labels for objects, colours, shapes and quantities. In those studies, meaningful use is developed through socially rich interactions where vocalisations served a function. Copying a phrase and understanding it are therefore different capacities. If we also look at a 2024 study, it compared the productive vocabularies of 21 companion African grey parrots with those of young children, matched by vocabulary size. The parrots in this study produce more greetings and conversational expressions and multi-word phrases, while the children in the study use more labels relating to objects, activities and emotional states. Many of the parrots' longer utterances may have been learned as complete sound sequences rather than assembled word by word, and that offers a plausible kind of middle ground for Bud on why we were thinking he was saying the words "don't shoot." He may have retained the rhythm and wording of an emotionally charged exchange between Martin and Glenna without actually understanding what had happened or intending to report it. Another thing we need to consider in this case is the listener, Christina. Research on auditory pareidolia has found that contextual priming can make people detect voices in ambiguous or degraded recordings. While Bud was producing learned speech-like sounds, so pareidolia alone can't explain his vocalizations. Once the idea of Bud saying "don't shoot" is introduced, it becomes much harder for a listener not to hear those words because they've already been primed. And in this case, there was no blind listening test, no independent analysis from people who had been told neither the suggested phrase nor background to the case, and there was no way to establish when Bud had learnt the sequence or whether its parts had originally occurred together. So Bud's vocalizations of "don't shoot" were never presented to the jury. The case rested instead on the evidence of Glenna's letters, her phone activity, the firearm evidence, forensic findings, and the circumstances found at the scene. In 2017, Glenna Duram was convicted and later sentenced to life in prison without parole. So did Bud solve this case? Well, no, but he may have preserved an acoustic fragment of something dreadful. If you've enjoyed this episode of Animals in History, please tickle the like button and subscribe.